When we talk about what men notice in women, the conversation almost always starts with appearance. Beauty standards, body shapes, facial features, clothing choices. We've reduced so much of the conversation to the external. But if we dig a little deeper, if we lean into what's really going on beneath the surface, something surprising begins to reveal itself. It's not just about how a woman looks, it's about how she shows up. Her presence. Her energy. Her way of existing in the world. That's what men truly notice, often without even realizing it themselves. Presence isn't about being loud, dominant, or demanding attention. It's not about being perfect or polished. Presence is about being real. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows who she is and doesn't feel the need to prove it. It's the calm rootedness of someone who has done the hard work of knowing herself, accepting herself, and choosing to live with intention. This kind of presence is magnetic. It draws people in not because it demands space, but because it owns space effortlessly. Men, despite cultural messaging that tells them to value image above all, are far more perceptive than we give them credit for. They're attuned to subtle cues, how a woman carries herself, how she responds under pressure, whether she's emotionally available or armored. They notice when a woman walks into a room with grace rather than insecurity. They notice when she listens without immediately needing to be heard. They notice when she speaks with clarity, not arrogance. They notice when she's genuinely kind, not performatively nice, but rooted in compassion and empathy. These are signs of presence. And they land differently. We live in a world obsessed with the highlight reel, the curated Instagram posts, the filters, the illusion of perfection. But men, especially the ones who are emotionally mature and grounded, are increasingly hungry for the real. And real is what presence offers. A woman can walk into a room without saying a word and still be the most noticed person there, not because of her dress or hairstyle, but because of how she makes people feel. She brings a sense of safety, curiosity, and calm. She isn't trying to be liked, she's simply being herself. That's rare. And because it's rare, it stands out. There's research in psychology that supports this. We're wired for emotional resonance. Our nervous systems respond to authenticity. When someone is comfortable in their own skin, it gives others permission to be comfortable too. Men notice this not always consciously, but viscerally. It's why sometimes a woman who doesn't fit the conventional standards of beauty will still be the one who captivates the room. It's not about symmetry or size. It's about substance. About energy. About truth. Here's something we don't talk about enough: men notice emotional presence even more in moments of tension. When conflict arises, when someone is criticized, when plans fall apart, how a woman holds herself in these moments tells a powerful story. Does she get defensive or stay grounded? Does she lash out or lean in with curiosity? Presence shows up in how we navigate discomfort. And many men are paying attention not to judge, but because they're trying to figure out whether this is a person they can trust, grow with, or simply feel safe around. We also have to acknowledge something difficult: many women have been taught to shrink. To be pleasing, to be accommodating, to smile even when something doesn't feel right. Presence often gets muted because of fear of judgment, rejection, or being too much. But when a woman chooses to reclaim her full self, to step into her truth without apology, it's revolutionary. It changes the dynamic entirely. Men notice that. They notice the shift from performance to authenticity. They may not have the words to describe it, but they feel the difference. Presence doesn't require perfection. In fact, it's often the opposite. The cracks, the imperfections, the realness, that's where the magic lives. When a woman owns her story, when she doesn't flinch from her scars or hide her strength, she becomes not just visible, but unforgettable. Presence says, I am here, and I'm not pretending to be anything other than what I am. And in a world filled with noise and masks, that kind of clarity cuts through everything. So, if you're wondering what men really notice, start there. Start with how you're showing up for yourself. Are you present in your own life? Are you listening to your own voice before trying to be heard by others? Are you rooted in values, in self-respect, in compassion? Because that inner work radiates outward. That's what men pick up on, whether they're able to articulate it or not. Let's be honest, none of us are immune to wanting to be seen, to be valued, to be chosen. But when that desire drives us to perform rather than to live truthfully, we lose touch with the very thing that makes us remarkable. Presence isn't about being noticed by everyone. It's about being deeply seen by the right ones. And that doesn't come from appearance, it comes from alignment. From being anchored in your identity and not swayed by every passing trend or opinion. In the end, it's not about trying harder to impress. It's about coming home to yourself. Because when you do that, when you live from a place of self-trust and emotional honesty, you will be noticed not for how you look, but for who you are. And that's the kind of noticing that lasts. We live in a world where perfection is glorified. It's in the way we edit our photos, the way we overthink our words, the way we second-guess ourselves before walking into a room. Somewhere along the way, brilliant, strong, capable women were handed a script that said, be perfect, and then you'll be loved. Be flawless, and then you'll be enough. But the truth is, perfection is not what people are drawn to. It's not what men notice most. What leaves a lasting impression isn't the woman who has every hair in place or the one who gets everything right. It's the woman who walks in with confidence, not the loud kind, but the grounded kind. Confidence is more magnetic than perfection ever will be. Confidence isn't about thinking you're better than others. It's about being at peace with who you are. It's knowing you're worthy not because you've earned it, or because you've hit some ideal version of yourself, but because you exist. And here's what's fascinating, men can sense confidence in ways that go far beyond words. It shows up in how you carry yourself. In how you speak without needing validation. In how you handle awkward moments, disappointments, or even rejection. Confidence doesn't make you immune to those things, it simply means you're not defined by them. What makes confidence so magnetic is that it creates safety. When a woman is confident, she makes the people around her feel more at ease. Why? Because she's not putting on a performance. She's not pretending. She's not playing a role just to be accepted. And that makes her easier to trust. Men may not always articulate this out loud, but they notice. They notice when a woman is comfortable in her own skin, when she isn't trying too hard to be liked. It feels refreshing. It feels different. Because in a culture that constantly pressures people to perform, authenticity stands out. There's a paradox here. Many women chase perfection because they believe it will bring them approval. But in trying so hard to be perfect, they often lose the very thing that's most attractive: realness. Confidence doesn't require perfection. It thrives in imperfection. It says, I can make mistakes and still be enough. It allows for laughter, for humility, for growth. A confident woman doesn't need to dominate a room. She just needs to be present in it. She doesn't over-apologize for her opinions. She doesn't shrink when someone challenges her. She listens, she responds, and she stands rooted in her values. This kind of confidence is born from self-awareness. It's not about faking it till you make it. It's about getting curious about who you are, what you believe, and what you want to bring into the world. It's about doing the inner work, facing your fears, healing old wounds, and learning to speak to yourself with compassion. That inner voice matters more than we realize. Because if the voice inside your head is constantly tearing you down, you'll never feel safe enough to stand tall. But when you begin to replace self-criticism with self-respect, something shifts. You walk differently. You speak with more ease. You trust yourself more deeply. Men notice that shift. They may not say it in those words, but they feel it. Confidence doesn't just attract attention, it earns respect. And it also creates boundaries. A confident woman doesn't entertain relationships that make her feel small. She doesn't chase people who are unsure about her worth. She doesn't tolerate disrespect, because she knows she deserves better. That clarity, that grounded self-respect, is what makes her magnetic. Not everyone will like her, but the right ones will see her. And they'll want to stay, not because she's perfect, but because she's real. There's a kind of quiet power in a woman who has stopped trying to prove herself. It's not arrogance. It's not indifference. It's liberation. When you no longer live in fear of not measuring up, you free yourself to be fully human. You get to be joyful, messy, ambitious, uncertain, and still worthy. And when you're living from that place, everything changes. The relationships you attract are different. The way you carry yourself through the world shifts. You no longer need to chase perfection, because you're not trying to earn love, you're allowing yourself to receive it. This doesn't mean confidence is constant. We all have moments of doubt. We all get insecure. But confidence is like a muscle, it grows through use. Every time you speak your truth, even when your voice shakes, you strengthen it. Every time you choose to stay instead of run from discomfort, you're building it. Every time you remind yourself that you are enough, even when the world says otherwise, you're deepening it. So no, men aren't looking for perfect. That's a myth we've been sold. What they notice, what truly captivates them, is when a woman owns who she is. When she laughs at herself. When she shares her ideas without needing to impress. When she stands firm in her boundaries. When she doesn't apologize for her joy, her intelligence, or her presence. That's confidence. And it's not only magnetic, it's transformative. We need more women who are done chasing perfect. Who are ready to choose presence over performance, truth over people-pleasing, and wholeness over the illusion of flawlessness. Because the most beautiful thing a woman can wear is not a designer outfit, a flawless face, or the approval of others. It's her confidence. That inner knowing that she belongs, just as she is. That's what men notice. And that's what stays. Vulnerability. It's a word that tends to make people uncomfortable. For many women, it carries a weight of danger, of exposure, of being too much or not enough. We've been conditioned to believe that if we let our guard down, we'll lose power. That if we show emotion, we'll be seen as fragile. And that if we're open, we'll be taken advantage of. But the truth is, vulnerability is not a weakness, it's one of the most powerful and captivating aspects of being human. And while culture may not always celebrate it openly, men do notice it. Often more than they know how to express. Because when someone is willing to be vulnerable, it invites connection. And connection is what we're all really craving, even when we pretend otherwise. Vulnerability isn't about oversharing. It's not dumping your life story on someone you just met. It's not asking for pity or looking for rescue. Vulnerability is about honesty. It's about emotional courage. It's choosing to show up as your whole self, even when you're scared. Even when the outcome is uncertain. It's being willing to say, this is what I feel. This is what matters to me. And this is where I'm still learning. That kind of openness takes strength. Far more strength than pretending you have it all together. We live in a world that tells women to be strong, independent, and invulnerable. And yes, strength matters. But so does softness. So does emotional depth. The most remarkable women are the ones who know how to hold both, who can be resilient and tender, confident and real. And the truth is, men notice when a woman leads with that kind of depth. It may not be what they're taught to pursue, but it's what resonates long after physical attraction fades. Vulnerability is captivating because it signals trust. When you are willing to let someone see your truth, even a small piece of it, you're saying, I trust you with this part of me. That's not weakness. That's intimacy. And intimacy is what allows relationships to grow. Many women hesitate to show vulnerability because they fear judgment. They worry that if they express insecurity, doubt, or emotion, they'll be seen as unstable or needy. But what actually happens is the opposite. Vulnerability makes you relatable. No one connects with someone who seems perfect all the time. We connect with each other through the cracks, through the shared uncertainty, through the places where we're still figuring things out. When a woman can admit that she doesn't have all the answers, or that she's been hurt, or that she's still healing, it opens the door for real conversation. It makes space for authenticity. Men may not always know how to respond to vulnerability at first, especially if they've never been taught how to hold space for it. But many of them crave it deeply. They want more than surface-level interactions. They want depth. And when they see it in a woman, when she shows up with truth rather than a polished version of herself, it gives them permission to do the same. That's the power of emotional courage. It's not just about being seen, it's about creating an environment where others can feel safe enough to be seen too. Vulnerability also changes the way we navigate conflict. When a woman leads with vulnerability, she doesn't attack or shut down, she communicates. She can say, I felt hurt when that happened, rather than turning to blame. She can ask for what she needs without wrapping it in defensiveness. That kind of emotional intelligence is incredibly powerful, and men notice it. Even if they're still learning how to meet that level of openness, they feel the difference. They feel the shift from power struggle to partnership. There's also something deeply attractive about a woman who owns her emotions without being ruled by them. Who can cry without shame, who can express fear without spiraling, who can say, "I don't know, but I'm willing to learn." That kind of grounded vulnerability draws people in. It doesn't demand attention, it invites presence. It says, this is a space where real connection can happen. And in a world that often feels shallow, that invitation is magnetic. We often associate vulnerability with risk, and yes, it involves risk. Anytime we open up, we risk being misunderstood, dismissed, or hurt. But the alternative, emotional isolation, disconnection, numbness, is a much heavier cost. Choosing to live without vulnerability might feel safer in the short term, but over time it creates distance, both from others and from ourselves. Vulnerability is what brings us back to our humanity. It's what makes love possible. And it's what turns a fleeting attraction into something lasting and meaningful. It's important to remember that not everyone will know how to receive your vulnerability. Some people will be uncomfortable with it. That's okay. Vulnerability isn't about performing for others, it's about staying true to yourself. When you're willing to be real, you'll begin to attract people who value that same honesty. And that includes men. Especially the kind of men who are emotionally ready for connection, who are done with the games and the masks, and who are searching for something deeper. So let's stop treating vulnerability as a liability. Let's start honoring it as a strength. Because when a woman is vulnerable, she's not being weak, she's being whole. She's standing in her truth, even when it's scary. She's choosing connection over control. And that choice is not only powerful, it's unforgettable. Men may not always have the words to describe why they're drawn to that kind of presence, but they feel it. They respect it. And the ones worth your time will meet you there. In a world where so many things are temporary, where people come and go, and where impressions are made in seconds and forgotten just as quickly, we often wonder what truly lasts. What leaves a lasting imprint? What stays with someone long after the conversation ends, long after the makeup is removed, long after the lights are off and the stage is gone? The answer is authenticity. Authenticity is what stays. It's what roots people in our presence. It's what men notice, often in ways they don't have language for. And it's what draws the right kind of attention, the kind that's not just interested in what you look like, but in who you are. Authenticity is not about being raw all the time. It's not about revealing every part of yourself to everyone you meet. It's not a performance of vulnerability or some kind of emotional dumping ground. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way that reflects who you truly are, your values, your truth, your mess, your light, your contradictions. Authenticity is a daily practice of saying, I will not abandon myself in order to be liked by others. And that kind of self-respect, that kind of consistency, is not only rare, it's unforgettable. When a woman is authentic, she becomes someone others can trust. Not because she always says the right thing, or always has the right answer, but because what she says and how she acts match up. There's a kind of peace that surrounds someone who is not trying to impress or compete or prove her worth. She's not in the room to win approval, she's simply being. That quiet kind of certainty is something men notice. It might not be flashy, but it lingers. It leaves an impression that's hard to shake. We often think attraction is about saying the perfect thing or presenting the perfect version of ourselves. But people don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with truth. With the way someone's eyes light up when they talk about what they love. With the way someone's laugh is a little too loud but completely unfiltered. With the way someone admits their fears without letting those fears define them. Authenticity creates connection. And connection is what we remember. There's something magnetic about a woman who isn't trying to be someone else. Who doesn't adjust her personality depending on who's watching. Who can be graceful but is also willing to be goofy. Who can be serious but is also unafraid of joy. When a woman owns all the parts of herself, not just the polished, put together ones, but also the messy, real, uncertain ones, she becomes deeply human. And that humanity is what people respond to. Especially men who are tired of surface-level conversations and relationships that feel like auditions. Here's the truth, we all wear masks. We've all learned how to perform to some degree. To keep things smooth, to avoid rejection. But the cost of that performance is that we begin to lose touch with ourselves. We forget what we actually enjoy, what we actually believe, what we actually want. And when we lose that connection to self, we become harder to connect to. Because people can feel when you're not fully there. They can feel the gap between who you really are and who you're pretending to be. Authenticity closes that gap. It says, here I am flawed, still learning, but real. Men notice when a woman is real. When she says what she means without hiding behind pretense. When she can admit when she's wrong. When she doesn't try to mold herself into someone else's idea of who she should be. That kind of self-possession is attractive in the deepest way. It creates space for honesty. It sets the tone for mutual respect. It shows that she values truth more than performance. And that's something that doesn't fade. Authenticity also allows for meaningful boundaries. When you're clear about who you are, you're also clear about what you will and won't accept. That clarity isn't cold, it's kind. Because it allows others to meet you in a place of truth, or to step away without confusion. Men notice that, too. When you're authentic, you don't play games. You don't manipulate or hint or ghost or test people. You just show up honestly. That doesn't mean you share everything with everyone, it means what you do share is real. The irony is that the more we chase being liked, the less truly seen we feel. But when we stop chasing and start living from a place of authenticity, something changes. The right people begin to recognize us. Not the version we've been performing, but the real us. And that includes men who are emotionally ready. They don't want the mask. They want you. Not the curated version. Not the version that never says no or always smiles. They want the one who knows her values, who's unafraid to be honest, and who isn't interested in pretending. We often underestimate how powerful it is to be ourselves. We're told it's risky. That it might cost us something. And it might. Authenticity does filter people out. But it also attracts the ones who are aligned with who we really are. It draws in relationships where we don't have to shrink or fake or overextend. That kind of connection doesn't just feel good, it's sustainable. Because it's built on something real. So yes, beauty might get someone's attention. Charm might hold it for a while. But authenticity? That's what stays. That's what men remember. That's what creates something deeper than attraction, it creates resonance. When you show up fully as yourself, you give people the opportunity to connect with the real you. And when that connection is made, it lasts. If you found value in this, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.